Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Ohio State's Sport Management Association YouTube channel. Today, we are beginning a series in which we are interviewing alumni of our graduate program. I'm Cassidy.
And I'm Gavin. Today, we are happy to be here with Urban Meyer, a 1988 graduate from the Sport Management program here at The Ohio State University. Coach, thanks for being here, and how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me join you guys.
Yes, so Coach, we're going to get right into it here. When did you decide you wanted to work in sports, and give a brief description of your career journey, and how did you end up where you are today?
Well, sure. I knew at a very young age, sports just dominated my life. You know, I was a baseball, football, basketball as far back as I can remember. And all the way from collecting football and baseball cards to that was everything I did. And really little interest in other things. And then I started to grow up and I started studying coaching because I just really was amazed. You know, it was back in the Tom Osborne, Joe Paterno, Bobby Bowden, that era, Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler. And so I just studied coaches and I knew I wanted to stay in athletics as long as possible. And genetics got in the way a little bit. I wasn't athletic enough to go on to be a professional. I was a professional baseball player for a couple of years, but not football. And then got into coaching, and it started, ironically, in a sports management program at Ohio State in 1986. So, and that's and then I can go, obviously, a long career after that.
Coach, from being in your program for a few years there, you always mentioned how much pride you took from being in Ohio and attending Ohio State. For the people out there who don't know, what does Ohio State mean to you? And then what 3 words would you use to describe Ohio State?
Oh, great question, Gavin. Ohio is different. You know, I've been everywhere in this country, I believe. You know, maybe not everywhere, but darn close everywhere. And you know, I think we're all products of how you grew up. I couldn't have been more happy than growing up in Ashtabula, Ohio, and that's right outside of Cleveland. Had a great family, had incredible coaches and teammates along our journey. We had great success, and it was a high school that, you know, most high school career and experience that many can only dream of, because I just had a lot of fun, a lot of great friends. And like I said, we won a lot and learned a lot of life lessons, and my parents were at my games, and it was really incredible. Ohio, you had to say 3 words. You know, Ohio to me is, yeah, this is what it is. I think it's team first. I think it's toughness and a premium on education. That's what I used to always talk about Ohio State. Woody Hayes would always talk about that. And I always believed in that. You know, it's a premium placed on education, tough people, and team first. And that's kind of what I learned back in the 70s, 80s, and then all throughout my career.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more from being from Ohio myself. You mentioned starting the sport management program here at Ohio State in 1986, and as a 1988 graduate. What are some of your favorite memories of your time in the sport management program here?
Oh, man, I'm trying to think of the guy that ran Ted Coates. Ted Coates was in charge of the sports management program, and all of our GAs went through the program, and he was awesome, and spent a lot of time with him. Undergrad was really hard for me. I mean, I got good grades, but to say I really enjoyed my classes, some I did, some I did not. You know, as I got towards my major, I did. I can say I loved all my classes in grad school. And we took stuff from sport law to facilities to, I mean, it's just incredible. Motivation classes, psychology classes, and, you know, just it was really incredible. So I obviously got great grades because you have to in grad school, but it wasn't one of those things I didn't look forward to going. I actually enjoyed smaller classes, great engagement, great conversation, and great learning experience.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we can all agree with that, even still today. So now we see you on Fox Sports as a college football analyst, a co-host of the Focus 3 podcast, and you're an assistant athletics director here at OSU. So how was the transition into these roles, and what was the importance to you of staying involved at Ohio State?
Another great question. It's been great, and thank God. I was worried that, you know, I had a 35-year career. My family, you know, the way I've always done things is they're completely engaged, and there's no separation. The way we work, and Gavin can attest to this, that my daughters and my son and my wife were always around and very engaged. And it was very, very hard. It was fantastic. It was great, but it was also when you take on a job that you are completely consumed by, that impacts everyone. And that, I'm not just talking about coaching. I'm talking about doctor. I'm talking about, teachers, um, everyone that have, very important jobs. You get consumed. So being involved in the state of Ohio, I love my experience growing up here. I love the state of Ohio, always will. Look forward to the day someday when I could come back and I really, get along well with our AD, Gene Smith, and obviously we handpicked Ryan Day, was on my staff, and I was the one that said, this is a guy that should be our next head coach. And so great relationship there. We'll always have that.
So what do you think is going to be the difference between your first year in these roles and the upcoming season?
Oh, just more experience. I think television was something that I did before, and it was, I was a little apprehensive about doing it because if they had me be someone that I'm not, I probably still wouldn't be doing it. But they let me, and Fox is fantastic, Fox college football, and I love my co-host, Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, Brady Quinn, and Rob Stone, and I actually look forward to going and hang out with them, and look forward to seeing them soon, I hope.
Awesome. What do you think is the biggest change coming in collegiate athletics?
Oh boy, there's going to be changes. I talked about this the other day. There is so much going on right now in our world. It's a world that I'm much older than you guys, and I can't remember any time in history experiencing what we're going through. And I'm just talking about this, what happened in the pandemic, and then the social unrest with the police issue with George Floyd, and the protesting and rioting and empowerment of the student athlete, which I knew was coming, but I didn't think it'd be coming this fast. But within a year, players will start getting name and likeness, and the ability to transfer anytime you want. So I think there's big changes. I can't tell you exactly what it is. I think anytime you talk about college sports, you talk about recruiting first. How will all this impact recruiting? I'm anxious to see. I'm anxious to see if the inducements of getting, whether it be shoe contracts or billboards or car dealership, whatever it may be. But if you're actually, and there's an antitrust lawsuit out there right now that says you can't limit. So if Gavin Cupp wants to come in and as an athlete, football player, any sport, and go earn money, he can. And you just want to, how do you regulate that, and how do you keep that somewhat consistent amongst your team? Because that's going to be very hard.
Yeah, that was a huge topic in our class this year with Gene Smith. Really got into that. So what has been a highlight of your career thus far?
Coaching or period?
You choose. Period?
Highlight of my careers. Well, I think there's a couple of things I'm very, very proud of. And one is that I was able to do what I did for almost 35 years. You see a lot of, I don't want to say families torn apart because that's not true, but just so much stress put on families. And to know that I have the strongest family, I can't imagine a stronger family. 3 wonderful kids, 2 grandkids. So the fact that the family, the Meyer family, is intact and as strong as ever. But I had to say, if you had to say what's the cherry on top, is the fact we went 7-0 against those guys up north.
There we go.
And everybody would probably understand that. I know the guy, that big dude sitting up next to you, understands that.
Absolutely. You forgot to mention signing Gavin Cupp in 2016.
That was number 3.
Oh, man, just missed. We're going to switch topics here a little bit. Coach, who is your biggest role model and why?
Biggest role model, is my father. My father was a hard worker, extremely intelligent guy, never missed any of our kids' events. I look back now, and that kind of got me a little bit because I would miss events. And, I didn't want to become one of those old guys sitting around that maybe a couple trophies or rings or whatever. And you look back and you missed your kids grow up. And I did it. I missed some things, but this, Gavin, I worked really, really hard at that. So and him, he's very strong in his faith. His family was everything to him. He even, sacrificed some of his career for his family. So my father.
Absolutely. I can see that, from being in your program, that really meant a lot to you. We hear from hearing from you your phrase above the line, also the title of your book. Can you explain what it means to be above the line and how students can practice being above the line?
Sure, that ties in with the whole R factor, and that's that you can't control the events that take place in your life. That's going to happen. You'll have hundreds of events every day. You can control how you respond. God gave us the greatest gift of all, and that's the gift of choice. And so, whenever there's an event in your life, you can choose how to respond, and that will usually directly affects the outcome. For example, you go out and have 3 glasses of wine at dinner, and you decide to get behind the car wheel of your car and drive home. I'll get to above line, below line in a minute, but you had an event and you made an impulsive decision, I'm going to get behind the wheel of the car. Where um, above the line is I flip the keys to someone else and make them drive, or else I get an Uber home, because that's with purpose and intentional. So above the line is making decisions above the line, which is intentional with purpose, well thought out. Below the line is impulsive autopilot, and we're impulsive beings. We're broken people, and I can't tell you. I'm sure Gavin, you recall, and in how many players I've had that made impulsive below the line decisions, and their life will never be the same. And that's a shame. And then there's other ones where, a guy, his girlfriend cheated on him, and he called his coach in the middle of the night, and he looked at his E+R=O wristband, and he made an above the line decision. I'm going to call my coach, instead of going and getting a fight or beating people up, or that would have ruined people's lives. So there's above the line decisions, below the line decisions.
That's definitely something that you taught us that, always goes through my mind, every day. Something you always got to think about with everything you kind of do, especially in the big decisions and events that come up. Maybe talk about your phrase, be the one.
Sure, be the one in society, and really it's been this way. I don't want to be one of those old guys saying, well, today, but it seems like everyone's asking for titles and everyone's asking for money. And one of the blessings I had in life is, talent was questionable, but the one thing I always wanted to be is the one. And that means on fourth down, I wanted to be that player that the coach trusted. When I became a coach, an assistant coach, I wanted to be the one. I wanted, when there was a big decision made, I wanted that head coach to say, hey, Coach Meyer, what do you think? And I took great pride in when that happened. And so what happens, and I always tell the story of fourth down, and you were there, 4th and 1 against our rivals in the overtime, only overtime ever in that great rivalry. And what happens is the official looks at you and he winds the clock. And that means you have 40 seconds until that ball is snapped. And when you have decisions like that, you're not really equipped, in my opinion, you're not equipped to make that by yourself. God didn't create us to make decisions by ourselves. So what's that coach do? First thing he does, he's got to make a decision whether to go for it or kick a field goal. I would always flip over and I talk to one person on my staff. I wouldn't talk to 10 of them or 20 of them or even 4 of them, because I didn't care what the others thought. I cared what this guy thought. And I considered him being the one. And the qualities out there in society right now, and I use this once again in my class all the time, society actually wants you to believe that being the one has something to do with your skin color, your background, your gender, your sexual preference, I get amazed when I hear all this stuff, Kevin, because in the football locker room, none of that matters. Who cares on fourth and 1? I'm not certainly asking someone, hey, are you Jewish or Christian? Because, to be honest with you, that's your business, or I'm not going to say, hey, let's give it to a black kid versus a white kid. I mean, what are you, out of your mind? No, you're going to give it to the one. And the qualities of the one are elite competitor, can I trust you, and are you tough? Those are the 3 qualities I've always looked for in the one. So when I get 4th and 1, the first person I talk to is one assistant coach that I can really trust his opinion. And then I have to make a decision who's going to execute the assignment. And we all know who did, is a kid named JT Barrett, who I thought was one of the toughest competitors I've ever been around in my life. And I knew he would get the job done. So once again, that's what it means to be the one. If you are the one, keep working to keep it, because people want your job. If you're not the one, figure out why.
Absolutely. How have your values and beliefs guided you throughout your career, and have they changed at all throughout your time?
Well, I've adapted. My father, once again, I came from a very strict family, a very great family. I remember my father sat me down when I was about 6 years old, and we talked about core values. And they're very similar core values that I've had with every program I've been in. And making a mistake's one thing, but breaking a core value is kind of who you are. And he made it very clear to me that the core value, he'd help me in anything, but if you ever broke a core value, it's time for you to leave because there's something wrong with you. And the core values and beliefs, remember what a value is. A value drives behavior. And there's concept values and there's core values. Concept is out there. It's in your head. It's from your cell phone. It's from people you hang with. It's music you listen to. It's the mob rule. It's a narrative. That's concept values. Core values is in your heart. And so I always believed my core values or our core values were number one was honesty. And that if you can't have a relationship with someone if he's not telling you the truth. Number two is treat one with respect. That's something that's as I would share with our players all the time. That's not something you say, my bad. I didn't mean to do that. That there's something wrong with you if you can put your hand on a woman and disrespect a female. Number three was no stealing. That separates us from an animal. That's a cardinal rule. That's don't take what's not yours. Number four, I changed a little bit, and that was drugs. I never really, early in my career, I'd get rid of people for using drugs, and I saw how catastrophic that was for some. So we put them in a lot of counseling, and I never got rid of a player for drugs. Sometimes they got rid of themselves, but I never did. And then the last one was no weapons. I added that. I adapted because there was a time in a place I was coaching where people started thinking it was important that they carry guns. And I know that you're allowed to, but I wasn't going to allow you to play football if you did that. So those are the core values. To me, everything else is a mistake, and we can work through a mistake.
Yeah, I think everything you hit on there is all great things that we could touch on in just daily lives, personally and professionally. So kind of expanding on that, what is leadership to you? How would you define leadership?
Well, it used to be my old definition that Gavin might remember, maybe not, but when I had leadership meetings and I taught, that's something I've been enamored with for many, many years, is the old, I call it the 70s version, is set a standard and demand all live up to the standard. That's the way it used to be. Back in the 70s and 80s, your parents told you something and you were in big trouble if you didn't do it. Same with a coach. My job wasn't really inspire. My job was to tell you what to do and you better do it. That's changed, and it's gradually changed. It's completely changed. So now the new, I call it the new and improved definition of leadership is number one is you have to earn trust. Earn trust and with great clarity, set standards, and then equip and inspire those to live up to those standards. So the three hot buttons are earn trust, equip, and inspire, as opposed to the first definition was demand. No, there's a big difference. Demands the old version, the new one, earn trust, equip, and inspire. If you can equip and inspire people, that you're officially a leader.
Yeah, I was at your student employee talk in the fall, and I remember you hitting on all these things. I have them written down next to me: core concept, values, beliefs, be the one. So
Really?
I love it. What are the common?
Where was this at?
What was it?
Where was that at?
It was inside. Where were we at? It was in Fawcett Center downstairs. It was like November.
This year?
Yep.
Oh, good. Well, you took good notes. You take better notes than Gavin. That's great.
I got a whole book of notebooks for my time.
So what are some common qualities among the best leaders you have been around?
I talked about this on TV last night, especially now, and I've learned this, especially nowadays. I think one of the most undervalued qualities of a leader is something that the great recruiters are listeners first. And going on with right now with how much pain is going on in our country right now, the number one thing that a leader must do is listen. And I did that in 2017 when Colin Kaepernick first took a knee, and when we had riots and protesting and cities were burning and opiate issues, and I mean, my God, the political climate that was out there. And I wanted to hear from our players. Not all of them, because quite honestly, not all earned that right to share with me. But there were some that, like Jalen Holmes, I'll never forget. I was very blessed. Racism wasn't part of my life. I I grew up in an area that it was fairly diverse, but we in athletics, we never looked at anybody as other than a brother and a teammate. And Jalen Holmes really opened my eyes. And then so did JT Barrett and some others and Larry Johnson. So that really made an impact on me. And I was, smart enough to say, you know what, this is not your wheelhouse. Learn and listen. And that's what we did. And Gavin, if I don't know if you remember what we did, the Wednesday before we played the team up north, we invited, and this Jalen Holmes idea, we invited many police officers in. We invited a bunch of service, firemen and medics. We invited a bunch of underprivileged kids from inner city. And we had about a 2-hour lunch and dialogue, and it was incredible. And Jalen Holmes came up to me afterwards. He goes, "I'm so glad we did this because I never really sat down and talked to a police officer and really understood how hard their day really was." And I think that's the answer. I really do. Listen.
Yeah, I remember both of those instances there. I will remember for the rest of my life. That meeting we had in that summer, a lot of these issues were new to me. I really didn't pay much attention to the news when it was out there growing up in high school. And back home in Northwest Ohio, we don't really see a lot of those issues. And so I remember that meeting being so strong and just opened my eyes to what's really out there. And then how cool it was to have that event the week of the Team Up North game.
Remember Josh Perry? Josh Perry also, we had him speak to our team, and this is, he gave great advice. We live in the greatest country in the world because that you're allowed to do whatever you want. You want to protest. You want to kneel down, stand up, whatever you want to do. He said every action has a reaction or a consequence. Just understand and think it through. If you think it through, it's what you want to do, and you can answer why you did that. God bless you. Go get it. I thought that was I even called him about 2 weeks ago. And I said, "Josh, you need to," he might be talking to our basketball team. I'm not sure, but I just thought his advice was exactly what we needed. I think that should be, a national piece of advice.
Yeah, that I'm like emotional. That hits home for me. My dad's in law enforcement, and
Wow.
The biggest thing right now is for everyone, just like the initiative you talked about, for everyone to get together, all walks of life, and learn from one another. That's what's really going to help.
Yeah, and God bless your father, because there's bad people, there's bad coaches out there, there's bad doctors, there's bad firemen, there's bad teachers, there's bad policemen, and when there's bad policemen, that's called the rule of law. But don't stereotype a policeman to be bad. Because I have many friends, many former players. CJ Barnett is a CPD. I spoke at his graduation. I have a guy that's been a 20-year vet in LAPD from when I coached him at Notre Dame. And he tells me every day he gets up and he takes a picture of his wife and his 2 children and he sticks it right in his body armor. And he says a prayer as he sits down in his car. And well, tell your dad thank you for what he does.
I appreciate that so much, more than you know. Transitioning here, what would you think is the most important quality as a leader?
Well, number one, I think nowadays is listening. And I think the ability to earn trust. Notice I said earn trust, not demand trust, but earn trust. The best coaches I've been around, and when I've been at my very best, that team trusted me. They knew. I didn't say it was going to be easy. Matter of fact, Gavin will tell you it was really, really hard. And we took pride in being very hard. But at the end of the day, I'd be shocked if some player said, "You know what, that guy had my back. That guy taught us," I say that guy, that program taught us about the value of hard work, about the value of being selfless and of respecting others, including, I say this not being silly, but if I ever heard someone say negative things about a rivalry, I'd get so, and Gavin knows this, I'd kill him. I'd be so upset with him, because you don't disrespect people or even your rival. You show respect. I didn't say you have to like them, but you have to respect them.
Yeah, everything you kind of just said there, I think it all leads into that brotherhood. And that's what I really appreciated the most from being in this program. Kind of going back on the leadership topic, what leaders have helped you form your leadership philosophies?
I started at Ohio State, and well, first my father. Hold on a minute. My father, first of all, there was no gray area. There was right from wrong. And Earl Bruce, and I also grew up in an era where, the Big Ten, that's the reason why we never had compliance issues or cheating or some of the stuff you hear about. So I just learned about there was no gray area. And I'm very grateful to this day about that. It's very hard now, but there's right from wrong. And do right. So those are the two people that mentored me the most.
Now, from one of those two mentors, what did you gain from their insight?
Number one was the right from wrong, and then both of them were very strong family people and strong in their faith. And so when you start thinking about when the storm hits, what gets you through storms, your family and your faith. If not, you're going to start looking other places, and sometimes not even more than sometimes. A lot of times when you look other places in family and faith, you're going to find some bad responses or bad characters involved. So those and we all know that in life, especially at high profile positions, they're going to be put in some tough situations, family and faith, and do right. Regardless what the media says, and you experienced that at Ohio State, regardless what the narrative, regardless, at the end of the day, do right.
How do you convey the elements of leadership through your podcast?
Well, I love Tim Kite. He's a very dear friend, and he's was my right hand man there for many years. And his system, it's a great saying that average leaders use quotes, good leaders have a plan, elite leaders have a system. And we had an incredible system. It was called the R Factor. It was called the Brotherhood of Trust. And every year I took another, just another piece of the leadership strategy that I thought was pertinent to our team. And it became a flywheel. So, Gavin Cupp was in our program, I believe, 5 years. And every year he got R Factor. And I'm sure every year he learned something. And then also the Brotherhood of Trust. The fundamental of being a teammate is trust. And so we teach people how to earn trust. And then I would pick like the edge or the chase or the win the moment or elite competitor, ownership. And I'm just giving you a few of them that I would personally do myself every summer with the team. And it was what I thought what might be the difference maker of the team. And, Solve the Mystery was the one in 2014. And the mystery is, how do you put others ahead of self? And that was our whole mission. And it worked. Cardell Jones became a legend because he told me after the national championship, he said, I finally learned how to solve the mystery.
So was there a specific moment or any time in your life when you began to realize the importance of culture and instilling these principles?
Yeah, very early. I didn't really say I completely understood it until, when I really studied the Patriots. Why are the New England Patriots so good? I know they're probably the best quarterback of all time, but it's more than that. There's a lot of great quarterbacks out there. And I studied them, and I studied this guy named Bill Belichick and the other top guys, and the word culture kept coming to me. And then Tim Kite and I would spend an inordinate amount of time together. And culture is what's driven in times of adversity. You're going to see some great teams come out of this thing stronger than ever. I got a feeling the Buckeyes are, because the culture is unbelievable. You're going to see companies fold. It's not because it's a bad company. It's probably because it's bad leadership and a bad culture. And then I more studied it, and I wanted to make sure our culture was crystal clear to everybody involved in it. So I really, the majority of my career, I studied it. The last half of it, I really understood it.
Coach, we want to thank you again for your time, and we're going to switch to some fun questions here. What does quarantine look like for you?
Oh, I got it. Not shaved. You just saw me in Florida because I got stuck in Florida for 7 weeks, and to be honest with you, I didn't care. I was playing tennis, working out, in great shape, eating right. Obviously, I didn't see a barber shave, so Shelly looked and said, "Oh, disgusting." Look, I didn't care because no one saw me. It's been great to spend time at home. I had a bunch of travel, a bunch of speaking, and instead I got to hang with my grandkids. And I know that's Ryan Day, and I talked about that. Ryan Day's been eating every night with his family now for 3 months. When's a coach ever done that? So that's what it looks like to me.
That's awesome. What are some of your all-time favorite sports memories?
All-time favorite sports memories. Oh boy. Our first national championship in 2006, ironically, we beat Ohio State and beat them badly, 41-14.
Crushing a young Gavin Cupp's heart.
I did that on purpose. And then you had the second national championship. We beat Oklahoma, Sam Bradford against Tim Tebow, just a legendary game. And, obviously two great teams. And then winning our third one here, when we beat Alabama, I mean, that's one that took your breath away. And we'll never forget that. When Zeke Elliott put his left foot in the ground and Evan Spencer hit that linebacker and he was out. That's hard to top that one, Gavin.
Yeah, that's up there for me too. And lastly, what is your advice to incoming graduate students?
Incoming graduate students. I close every class and I actually close every Zoom call with this and I want to make sure everybody understands this because I believe this is an objective truth. It's time tested, it's history, and it's proven by science that hard work will be rewarded. You have to really trust that. If not, why work so hard? So at the end of the day, and I worry about that out there right now, is that really being taught to the same degree it was taught to me, that at the end of the day, you have to believe if you work harder, you'll beat the person you're going against, or you'll do well in whatever endeavor you have. I know for some people, maybe it's a little harder because whether you're dealing with racial issues, whether you're dealing with other issues you're dealing with, that's all true. I mean, that's real. But at the end of the day, you have to believe this objective truth that hard work will be rewarded. That's my advice to you. You want something, go work for it. You don't expect someone to give it to you. You'll work really, really hard. And I think it will happen for you.
Absolutely. So to wrap up, Coach Meyer, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and we know our viewers will value hearing from you. And to everyone watching, thank you for tuning in to the first episode of our Sport Management YouTube channel. We'll see you again soon.